A conversation around the Minnesota Vikings has suddenly picked up momentum, and it centers on one question that could become increasingly important as training camp approaches. Are the Vikings one injury away from having a serious problem at edge rusher? That debate gained new life after ESPN analyst Aaron Schatz suggested that Minnesota should consider signing veteran pass rusher Hassan Reddick before camp begins, a move that would immediately add experience and depth to a position group that, while talented at the top, still carries some uncertainty behind its primary contributors. The argument is not about the Vikings lacking star power. The focus remains on Dallas Turner and Andrew Van Ginkel, two players expected to play major roles in Brian Flores' defense. The concern comes when looking beyond those names. According to the discussion, the depth behind them is extremely thin, with younger and less proven options expected to carry significant responsibilities if injuries occur during the season. That is where Hassan Reddick enters the conversation. While Reddick's production has not matched the numbers that made him one of the league's most feared pass rushers a few seasons ago, the belief is that he still possesses traits that could help Minnesota immediately. His experience in multiple defensive systems, particularly fronts that require versatility and adaptability, makes him an intriguing fit for Flores' aggressive and unpredictable defensive approach. Flores regularly asks his edge defenders to do more than simply attack the quarterback. Players must understand coverage responsibilities, disguised pressures, and complex zone blitz concepts. Reddick's background could allow him to transition into that role more smoothly than other available veterans. The bigger point being made is that Minnesota should be proactive rather than reactive. Every NFL season brings injuries. No team wants to plan for them, but every contender must prepare for them. If either Turner or Van Ginkel were forced to miss significant time, the Vikings could suddenly find themselves searching for help during the season, potentially paying a higher price or settling for fewer options. Adding a veteran now would provide insurance and stability before a problem ever develops. And Reddick is not the only name being discussed. Veteran pass rushers such as Jadeveon Clowney, Von Miller, and Kyle Van Noy were all mentioned as possible options depending on what Minnesota values most. Clowney remains capable of generating pressure in passing situations. Miller brings leadership, experience, and championship pedigree. Van Noy may offer one of the strongest schematic fits because of his familiarity with Flores and his ability to operate in multiple roles. What makes this discussion fascinating is that it reveals how close the Vikings may believe they are to competing at a very high level. Teams in rebuilding phases rarely spend significant attention debating veteran depth additions. Contenders do. The logic behind adding another edge rusher is not that Minnesota lacks talent. Instead, it suggests that the roster is strong enough that one weakness could become magnified if adversity strikes. A deep playoff run often comes down to surviving the inevitable challenges of a long NFL season, and quality depth can be the difference between maintaining momentum and watching a promising year unravel. At the same time, another storyline is beginning to generate excitement inside the Vikings community, and it involves one of the newest members of the roster, sixth-round rookie running back. Demeen Claiborne shared details about his journey, and the story paints a picture of a player whose determination may be every bit as impressive as his athletic ability. According to his own recollection, he spent his younger years doing whatever he could think of to improve physically. He talked about running with bricks in his hands, flipping tires for long distances, and creating unconventional workouts because he simply wanted to get better. He did not have a sophisticated training program. He just had the desire to work. That mindset immediately stands out. For late-round selections, physical talent alone is rarely enough. Making an NFL roster often requires relentless commitment, discipline, and the willingness to outwork competitors. Claiborne's comments suggest that those qualities are deeply rooted in who he is. Even more revealing was his discussion about mentality. He explained that he realized he had to do different things in order to become different. He acknowledged difficult periods, moments of uncertainty, and times when he questioned who truly supported him. Yet throughout those challenges, he remained focused on the goal that eventually led him to the NFL. For Vikings fans, that kind of story resonates because it reflects the type of player Minnesota appears determined to bring into the organization. Individuals with resilience, toughness, and a hunger to prove themselves. And what makes this story even more interesting is what teammates have reportedly started saying about him behind the scenes. That is where things begin to get really intriguing, and it could have major implications for the Vikings' backfield moving forward. What do you think, Vikings fans? Should Minnesota sign Hassan Reddick before training camp? And are you buying the growing hype surrounding rookie Demeen Claiborne? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you think either of these storylines could become one of the biggest developments of the season. What makes Claiborne's story even more compelling is that the praise surrounding him is no longer coming only from his own words or from coaches trying to motivate a young prospect. The excitement is beginning to come from established veterans who have spent years in NFL locker rooms and understand exactly how difficult it is for a rookie to stand out this early. One of the biggest endorsements came from Aaron Jones, and his comments immediately grabbed attention. According to Jones, Claiborne possesses something that simply cannot be taught. He described seeing a different gear whenever the rookie steps onto the field, emphasizing that the burst and acceleration jump out almost instantly. Even more surprising, Jones compared some of those traits to Jahmyr Gibbs, one of the most explosive running backs in professional football today. Now, let's be very clear. Nobody inside the organization is claiming Claiborne is Jahmyr Gibbs. That would be an unfair expectation to place on a sixth-round rookie who has yet to take an NFL regular season snap. Gibbs has already established himself as one of the league's elite offensive weapons. His combination of speed, vision, receiving ability, and home run explosiveness makes him one of the most dangerous players in football. But that's exactly why the comparison generated so much buzz. Veteran players don't casually throw around names like Gibbs. They understand the weight those comparisons carry. When a respected veteran notices similarities in acceleration and explosiveness, people pay attention. And Aaron Jones wasn't the only one making comparisons. Another observation reportedly connected Claiborne's style to Devon Achane of the Miami Dolphins, another player known for game-changing speed and the ability to turn routine touches into explosive plays. Once again, nobody is saying Claiborne has already reached that level. The significance lies in the fact that multiple people inside the football environment continue mentioning the same type of traits whenever they discuss him. Speed, burst, acceleration, big play potential. Those are the words that continue surfacing. For Vikings fans, that's particularly exciting because of how the running back room appears to be developing. Jordan Mason is expected to play a major role in Minnesota's offense. There is significant confidence that he can handle a heavier workload and potentially produce at a level that exceeds what many around the league expect. Mason has already shown flashes of physicality, toughness, and consistency as a runner. He represents the power component of the equation. Now imagine adding Claiborne's explosiveness into that mix. Suddenly, Minnesota could have a complementary pairing that forces defenses to prepare for completely different styles. One runner wears defenses down with physical carries between the tackles. The other threatens to score every time he touches the football. That kind of balance can create problems for opposing coordinators. And perhaps that's one of the reasons there was resistance to the idea of Minnesota spending major money on another running back during free agency or making a splash trade at the position. The belief appears to be that the Vikings already had pieces in place. If they could simply identify the right young player in the draft, they might achieve similar production without dedicating significant financial resources to the position. What makes this even more intriguing is the timing. The Vikings enter the season with questions about how much work Claiborne will actually receive. On paper, veterans remain ahead of him. That's normal. That's expected. But NFL depth charts have a way of changing quickly. Injuries happen. Opportunities emerge. Players force coaches to reconsider plans. And if Claiborne continues generating positive reviews throughout camp and preseason action, it becomes increasingly difficult to keep him off the field. In fact, there appears to be growing confidence that he will make the roster. The discussion wasn't centered on whether he belongs in the organization. Instead, the conversation focused on how quickly he could carve out a meaningful role. The larger picture here may actually involve the evolution of the Vikings' offense as a whole. There is optimism surrounding the running game entering the upcoming season. Interestingly, the belief is not that Minnesota was ineffective running the football previously. The argument is that the offense simply didn't lean on the ground attack often enough. Advanced metrics reportedly painted a much more favorable picture of the rushing attack than many fans realized. That opens the door to an important possibility. If the Vikings can successfully blend Kevin O'Connell's passing concepts with a more consistent and committed rushing attack, the offense could take another step forward. The addition of experienced coaches and new perspectives may help create a more balanced approach that maximizes both aspects of the system. And that's where all of these storylines suddenly connect. The edge rusher discussion is about protecting a roster that believes it can compete. The Claiborne story is about uncovering another potential weapon that nobody outside the organization fully expected. One storyline focuses on reinforcing a strength. The other focuses on discovering an unexpected contributor. Together, they paint a picture of a franchise entering a fascinating phase. Minnesota isn't talking like a rebuilding team. Minnesota isn't acting like a team hoping merely to stay competitive. The conversations revolve around fine-tuning the roster, strengthening weaknesses, and finding hidden advantages that could matter in December and January. That is often what happens when expectations begin to rise. The most fascinating part is that neither story has reached its conclusion. Will the Vikings actually sign a veteran edge rusher before camp? Will Haason Reddick become the answer? Could another experienced pass rusher emerge as the preferred option? And perhaps even more intriguing, can Demeen Claiborne transform early off-season buzz into meaningful regular season production? Those questions remain unanswered. But one thing is becoming increasingly clear. Both developments are worth monitoring closely because they could have a significant impact on how far this Vikings team goes when the games begin to matter most. Now, I want to hear from every Vikings fan watching. Do you think Minnesota should make a move for Haason Reddick before training camp? And how excited are you about Demeen Claiborne after hearing what teammates and coaches are saying about him? Drop your thoughts in the comments, smash that like button if you're ready for Vikings football, and subscribe so you don't miss any of the latest Vikings news, rumors, roster updates, and exclusive coverage throughout the season. SKOL